Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central today with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. Hoping to find everybody feeling real fine out there in this land of mine. Well. Good morning to everybody today. Although we don't start our program to noon, I still say good morning to you anyway. Well, today is we begin a week-long celebration of the 129th Earth Day of His Imperial Majesty, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, last emperor of the 3,000-year Solomonic Dynasty of Ethiopia, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Jah Rastafari. That's right, we're here to celebrate the life of Haile Selassie I, or as some people like to call him, Haile Selassie I, because we use the I to represent the number 1, the Roman numerals and all that. But at any rate, we're here to celebrate his life, and we've got our archives here are so deep, and we've been collecting books for so long, materials for so long. Sometimes it's hard to remember what we have and what we do not have. And it dawned on me as I was setting this up today that we have more than one biography of Haile Selassie. We have his autobiography, which is a little bit kind of on the dry side. And then I just realized that I also have this one here written by his great-great-grandson, Aspawosen. So we're going to read from this one because it's a little bit easier reading, probably easier listening on your ear as well. Because I don't want to read anything that's too dry. Because this man lived a long life. We want to focus, for the most part, on his early upbringing, his early life, his genealogy, who he was related to, where he came from. We want to focus on all those things, but we want to tell it in a way that is captivating, motivating, and inspirational, all at the same time. So let's go ahead and inspire you to do a few things right now. Number one thing we need y'all to do right now is to go ahead, if you're watching this on Facebook, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And last but not least, go ahead and spread the word across the land through all your networks, your social media networks, your telephone networks, your letter writing networks. Spread the word from coast to coast without a boast. Doc Ock is here doing it like I need to, because it's time to lift up a toast to Emperor Haile Selassie, right after we read the proverb of the day, which today's proverb is, quite simply, an orange never bears a lime. Okay? An orange never bears a lime. Now today we like to say that by just saying it is what it is. But we could also say an orange never bears a lime. You're not going to get an orange out of a lime seed. Or, you're not going to get a lime out of an orange seed. Quite simply. And that is, again, another proverb from the area of Sierra Leone, or the mountain lion of West Africa. Right there on the coast. All right, so now we can begin to read from our book of the week. We might read from more than one book, but we're certainly going to read from this one because this one looks like a really good one, and we would just love. We've had this book on our shelves for a while and really haven't had a chance to dig into it. So today we're going to start digging into this book a little bit. Written by let me make sure I get these grands right. let's see, is it the grandson or the great-great-grandson? Here we go here. It's the grandfather. So great-grandson of Haile Selassie and Empress Menen. Yes, the great-grandson of Haile Selassie and Empress Menen. And let's see what Asper Wilson has to say about his great-grandfather. Prologue. Who was Haile Selassie? Very good question. Starts off with an excellent question. Who was Haile Selassie? And that's what we want to find out. Just who was this man? There is a well-known story in Ethiopia concerning Ras Tafari Makonnen, who ascended the country's throne in November 1930 as Emperor Haile Selassie. In the early summer of 1892, it is said that a hermit came to see Ras Makonnen, the governor of the Ethiopian province of Harar, whose wife had suffered a series of miscarriages, and revealed the following prophecy to him. This time, the child your wife is pregnant with will come into the world in the best of health and survive. He will grow up to be a fine boy, and when he is still a young man, he will rise to become the ruler of Ethiopia and govern the whole country with a firm hand. He will bestow greatness and pride upon Ethiopia and make it renowned the world over. But ultimately, he will destroy everything he has built with his own hands and leave the country in ruins. Wow. That's a hell of a prophecy. I didn't know it said all that, but that's what it says. So, who was Haile Selassie? The little man with the proud face who ruled Ethiopia for nearly 60 years. Some people demonize him as a ruthless dictator, while others revere him as a saint. In September 1974, a news picture was wired around the world showing him, by now a visibly aged and frail old man, being escorted out of his palace by the ringleaders of a military coup and driven away in a light blue VW Beetle. 44 years before, when he was crowned Negusa Nagast, or King of Kings, the whole world sent its envoys to attend the coronation celebrations in Addis Ababa. The reports of this occasion that were dispatched to Europe by the English novelist Evelyn Waugh and others read like fairy tales from 1001 Nights. As Emperor of Ethiopia, he took the name of Haile Selassie, which literally means the power of the Trinity. His dynasty descended from the biblical King Solomon, and the world called him the victorious Lion of Judah. Just 6 years after ascending the throne, the King of Kings appeared in Geneva in front of the General Assembly of the League of Nations. The forces of Mussolini's fascist Italy had invaded Ethiopia, and the exiled monarch made a moving appeal to the world's conscience. The words he spoke that day have gone down in history. Catastrophe is inevitable if the great states stand by and watch the rape of a small country, quote unquote. Time magazine chose him as its Man of the Year in 1935. In 1941, when the combined forces of Ethiopia and Great Britain had driven Mussolini's black shirts from the country, he returned in triumph to reclaim the Ethiopian throne. In the 1950s, the anti-fascist on the throne positioned himself at the head of the African decolonization movement. To this day, Haile Selassie continues to be revered as the father of Africa by many of the continent's leaders. Nelson Mandela called him the African giant. Bob Marley, meanwhile, set his speeches to reggae beats, coming from the root of King David through the line of Solomon. His imperial majesty is the power of authority. Spread out, spread out, spread out, end quote. Run the lyrics of the song Black Man Redemption. Like many others who call themselves Rastafari, Bob Marley saw in Haile Selassie the reborn Messiah. But there were and still are other less reverential voices. The Polish journalist Ryszard Kapuscinski portrayed him in his book, The Emperor, as a despotic ruler besotted with pomp and surrounded by obsequious dignitaries and accomplices. On his accession, Haile Selassie made it his goal to modernize Ethiopia along Western lines. Yet, the Ethiopian students who, as part of his modernization policies, were sent abroad in the 1950s and 60s to study in Western Europe and the U.S. only ended up being struck by the economic and political backwardness of their native country in comparison with developed Western democracies. As a result, they came out onto the streets to protest. In the autumn of 1973, the years before Haile Selassie was overthrown, television pictures of starving children who had fallen victim in their tens of thousands to a devastating famine in the Ethiopian provinces of Wollo and Tigray were broadcast around the world. Who was Haile Selassie? Almost all those who got to know him in person found it hard to resist the sheer charisma he radiated. Every conversation gave me further reason to admire and acknowledge this sovereign, who is so different from those who surround him and from his own people, wrote the French physician Dr. Cessard, who is the emperor's personal doctor for many years. In his motionless face, only his eyes seem alive, brilliant, elongated, extremely expressive eyes. They bespeak boredom as well as polite indifference, cold irony, or even anger. The courtiers know these different expressions well and retire suddenly when the monarch's glance becomes indifferent, then hard. On the other hand, especially when he is dealing with Europeans, his eyes know how to be soft, caressing, affable, and even sincere. My first memories of the Ethiopian emperor take me back to my childhood in 1956. I was 8 years old at the time and had come down with mumps, which stubbornly refused to clear up, even after treatment with a course of drugs. The doctors in the Haile Selassie Hospital in Addis Ababa decided to operate on me, removing parts of my parotid gland that had become infected. To this day, I can clearly remember this procedure, being anesthetized with ether and the intense nausea that subsequently overcame me. But above all, I recall the moment when I woke up from the anesthetic. As I slowly came to, the first person my gaze focused upon was none other than the Ngusa Nagast, the King of Kings. He was wearing his field marshal's uniform, over which he had draped his kaba, the traditional cloak of the Ethiopian nobility. Next to him stood my grandfather, Ras Kasa, and my father, Ras Asarate. Both looking worried. The emperor laid his hand on my forehead and said, "Now wait just a moment, my boy, and there will be ice cream as a treat." Saying this, he took his leave in French of Professor Leutz, the hospital's German clinical director, and of the German surgeon who had performed the operation, thanking them for their splendid work. I later learned that the doctor who had operated on me was given a gold coin in gratitude by the emperor, while my parents sent him a set of gold cufflinks. I lived the next few days in a world of make-believe. For a whole week, as I lay in my sick bed, I received daily deliveries of a large thermos flask emblazoned with a golden imperial lion and filled with the most diverse and wonderful flavors of ice cream. These delicacies were specially prepared for me from fresh ingredients by the emperor's Swiss head chef in the nearby Genet Palace. I will also cherish my memories of the emperor at the Red Cross Festival, which was held every year in January on His Majesty's lawn in Addis Ababa. As children, there was scarcely an event that we looked forward to with greater anticipation. On this day, the embassies of all the nations that were with diplomatic representation in Ethiopia put up tents on the lawn where they sold the culinary specialties of their country in aid of the Red Cross. The emperor let my cousins and me accompany him as he did his round of the marquees. Everywhere the emperor stopped, he was given a present, which, provided it wasn't a bottle of wine or spirits, he immediately handed over to us before moving on to the next tent. So it was that at one Red Cross festival, I became the proud owner of a doll in traditional Black Forest costume from the German tent, and on another such occasion, a Black Forest cuckoo clock, which subsequently took pride of place in the drawing room of our house. I used to stand in front of it mesmerized, waiting for hours on end to see the cuckoo emerge from its little hut and hear its piercing cry echo down the corridors of our villa. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there. Yeah, I'm gonna stop right there, and we will return to this text on another day. Probably this, I won't return to this text until Monday, because we're going to be doing a special on Saturday and Sunday. We're gonna have some special playlist for you. So we'll do it similar to the way we usually do, but we're gonna have some videos. We're gonna have some videos, some movies, etc., that we're going to include in that playlist of Haile Selassie and Ethiopia, to give you some more insight into the nation of Ethiopia. Now, we did something similar last week, but these videos are going to be specifically related to, or more specifically related to, Haile Selassie, okay, and his and other members of the royal lineage, but particularly Haile Selassie. So you'll see what I'm talking about when you tune in on Saturday and Sunday right here on the Tubular Black Facts channel. Yet you want to be here to catch Doc Ock at noon and 9. So I say to you in closing, make sure, if you haven't already, to give us a like if you're watching on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Tubular Black Facts channel. Button is right below. So look right below where you're seeing this this video right now. Just look right below. You should find a button down there. Go ahead and hit that button. Click it. Don't miss it. You want to hit it and then quit it. In the meanwhile, peace with justice, because anything less disgusts us, and you know we don't like being disgusted.